Good evening, good day, good afternoon, good everything. Good to you on this fine day here in Grind HQ. It's nice to see everybody here. I see a lot of folks in here, which is kind of cool. It's really cool. I see comments from Johnny, Jim Largo, Bjorn Jorgensen, Rez, Gojatron, Ian Sweeney, Ted Milich, Keith Knight. Watching you, Keith. Kieran Ball, and I think it's everybody. Y'all are talking about the weather. I'm also in Texas, Ted, and I wear shorts every day. The only time I wear long pants is if I'm inside and I have the AC too low and it's sweatpants, or if I'm doing stuff for the Game Chasers film, because that character wore long pants in the movie, partially because of the fact that I have tattoos on my legs and we did not want this character to have tattoos. So that's a thing. So the last time I wore pants was on Saturday. Saturday we did some pickup shots for the movie, and it was like a 9-hour affair. The actual shots took about 4 or 5 hours to get done from start to finish, and it was good stuff. But because of the particular scene that we were using at the time, it was it was lots of screaming and hollering, and you know, I ended up getting a headache from screaming so loud for this particular scene that we were doing, and we forgot to bring water because we were stupid and we were in the middle of nowhere, so we couldn't go get any. So I just had to power through and then film some behind the scenes footage, interview stuff, which is pretty cool. And uh, so that kind of thing means that the movie is really close to being done, and I did get to see some finished shots, some fully sound mixed shots, some other things, and we've announced the premiere date, which is January the 20th, which is a Thursday, here in DFW, and it was good. It was really really good to know that it's finally happening, and to see so much of the movie complete is just really cool. And I know that he's really ready to get it done. We're ready for it to be done for sure. So what I also found out was that we have the in-person premiere on the 20th. Anyone wanting to go, keep your eyes peeled for an announcement as to if you can get tickets to come and see it. I advise doing that if you can, because it's going to be probably the only time this is shown in the theater for quite a while. And then everyone who's pre-ordered the film through the Indiegogo or the Kickstarter will get access to their digital copy within a few weeks of the premiere. So like somewhere in mid-February. So you'll be able to see it a lot easier. But we want to give the backers the access first before it gets distributed for wider release and things like that. So it'd be good stuff. Ted is asking where the premiere is. It's in Plano, Texas. Plano, Texas, which is just north of Dallas. Very nice theater, and it should be good. But as soon as I have more information on that, I will let you guys know. But yeah, that's the thing that's happening. So I want to give everyone like the heads up now. So if it is something you want to travel for, I know there will be tickets available. I just don't know when. I don't have a link yet because we're waiting on backers to RSVP with how many people they're bringing, so we can make this available for the right people at the right time. Ted says that's a good little drive for me. Yeah. And I can see why it would be cost prohibitive to do so, especially on a Thursday. I totally get it. But it would be worth it because the ticket also includes there's going to be like a little get together right beforehand. We're going to have a Q&A afterwards. It'll be a unique experience. So anyone who's interested and has the means, keep it in mind. That's the only reason I'm saying it here and saying it now. Anyway, that's not really why we are here. Johnny Source says, never fear, good citizens. Empty wallet man is here. That's true. That's true. Hi, Wolfie762. I see ya as well. Keith asks, what have I done? What haven't you done lately? I don't know. I'm just giving you a hard time, mate. Just giving you a hard time. So, hello, everybody. I hope everything is well, weather notwithstanding, because it is that time of year for most folks where the weather gets pretty horrible. And as the weather starts to get colder, as it starts to get, closer to here in the States, Thanksgiving, Black Friday, and of course the winter holidays, which there are many, the most widely recognized being Christmas, of course. There's a lot of things that happen to collectors of any sort, whether it's toys, video games, collectibles, all that stuff. There's this surge of retail stuff that just tends to happen, and I want to talk about that because it isn't just about, you look at the title of the stream, you might think, well, oh, well, he's talking about, well, if I have a monthly budget for my collecting, and I also have to have Christmas gifts sorted in time for the holiday, that's a thing. Well, yeah, it absolutely is. But it's also it's about way more than that because you have companies that will push distribution a lot harder to make sure that those things are in stores for the holidays, and sales will happen. So you're confronted with lower prices, more stock, and a big push to get you to spend your money on that stuff. So I feel like it's it's a subject worth discussing. So that's what we're here to do today. And I thank you for being here with me as we do that. Bjorn Jorgensen says there's a fire down the street from him, so don't be on fire. I don't want Grandpa Jorgensen to be on fire either. Be careful. Keep your eyes open. I'm sure it's not going to spread, but if it does, get the hell out of there. Um, Good evening to you too, Jonathan. Nice to see you. So, where to begin? So, ultimately, let's address the first most obvious thing, right? For a lot of people that aren't my mother, she would Christmas shop throughout the year. Oftentimes, when she'd find a good deal on something or something she was trying to find, she would get it. But everybody to some level, I find, tends to cram their holiday shopping a little bit around this time of the year. I've heard reports, read reports even, that your retail, they make something like 60 to 80% of their profit this time of year because people just rush to the stores to get stuff. And granted, the online, e-commerce has certainly picked up in the last 10 years and then very much so in the last 18 months for obvious reasons, but it's still considered a retail outlet on some level, right? So with that much money being spent, people getting gifts that much, I think it's safe to say that if you are budgeting for your collecting needs throughout the year, there's some really weird decisions you might have to make. So not just because you have a gift giving budget you need to be able to maintain too, but because of the fact that they're also pushing distribution for things. Things get released around this time of the year. That happens a lot with games and toys for sure. And certainly to a certain degree, films, things like that. But on top of everything else, stock that's been hard to get all year long suddenly starts appearing, right? You just start to see stuff. And on top of that, the older stuff that they're finally putting on shelves, they discount them a little bit sometimes, which makes it difficult. It's like, well, do I buy this gift for this person or do I buy this thing that's on sale for a really good price that I've been having a hard time finding? And you start to like really mess with your budget and so forth. And I mean, granted, budgeting in general can get very difficult for collectors throughout the course of the year, and um, it's definitely something that you always have to keep in mind. You always have to be mindful of the fact that you've got stuff you have to pay for your sustenance. And so when you add the other stuff in the mix, it can be even more difficult. So my first question to chat is, do you have a set budget for collecting on a month-to-month or paycheck-to-paycheck basis? I have a loose one that I set. I'm pretty flexible with it because thankfully, I can be. But for the most part, Um, I try to keep it within a certain place. And I know that not everyone does that. Some people don't buy stuff all the time, and they just have like a. Some folks will take the approach of hanging on to money and keeping it in like in an account style, like they're budgeting it, but they're keeping it aside. And then whenever something that they want to get is available, they can pull the trigger because the money's right there. And some people just fly by the seat of their pants because that's how they have to live anyway. So, what is the approach that you guys take? I'm curious, and we'll talk a bit about it. Gojatron, by the way, hello, sir, says the abundance of sales and discounts at this time of year make it hard to abstain from self shopping. Yes, definitely. I saw some sales today, and I was like, oh man, because there was a couple things that went on a nice clearance earlier, and I honestly don't remember what it was. It wasn't anything super great, but it was just enticing enough. You know what I mean? Um, it's very interesting that we're in that Black Friday week, and Black Friday is never going to be the same as it used to be. It's never going to be. The e-commerce side of it's too big, and because they know they can make their money, they don't have the same push to like just fill up stores with overstock and slash the prices on it and people getting trampled and all that trash. You just don't see that happening too often. Um, Ted Millick is saying that they've gotten 30% of his collection from clearance. That you do have a budget also, but try not to overdo it. Fair enough. Bjorn says the fire's a burn pile. Okay. Kieran Ball says my disability benefits paid on the end of each month, so I'm going to have to use my November payment for Christmas gifts. There you go. That makes sense. It's something where when everyone's situation is different. I get paid twice a month, but it varies a little bit. Even though they're set dates, they don't fall on a perfect 2-week loop. I much prefer a 2-week loop. But because of the way I'm paid and I'm on a salary, the checks are overall a bit bigger than they would be on a every 2-week thing. So it's like, well, what's better? What's really better for you? Personally, I prefer every 2 weeks because it's easier for me to budget and time things out and stuff like that. But it's okay. Everyone is in a different place. And I see some people calling out like the HasLab stuff where people that are trying to buy a Rancor, it's like, well, if you really want one, first of all, that thing's probably not getting funded. Two, it's a lot of money to spend this close to a holiday if you really do want one. Like, I don't begrudge anyone that wants a Rancor, but I don't think anyone would disagree that those people would be getting ripped off if it does get funded, frankly. But it's a lot of money. It's a big chunk to bite off at that point. Um, it's kind of interesting. And Ted Millich is saying something that I think is prevalent, especially this time of year, where he says nowadays, if you see something, you better grab it because you may never see it again. And that's on the unfortunate truth, where retail's not the way that it used to be, where stuff would get restocked regularly enough, and there weren't like these scalper idiots running around. And what else are you going to do? You have to take the chance, and that can screw up your budget and everything else. Johnny Sorensen is saying, unless it's a part of a core collection that I'm after or a troop builder, I mostly ignore sales as I usually already have the things. Fair enough. That's something else that we can get into where if you're pre-ordering throughout the year and things just kind of arrive when they arrive, then the sales may not affect you as much if you're buying modern stuff. Some folks don't do that. They're buying vintage or, just stuff that's in the past. And at that point, the question becomes, are you still actively looking at that point? Or, because the holidays are coming, are you looking at local stores for sales, which they might have, because they want to make their money too. They want their piece of that holiday pie, so to speak. It's a balancing act, I think. Um, Ian Sweeney says, I'm a budget collector in the very literal sense, as my free income is less than £40 a month. So clearance is the name of the game. Absolutely. But even without a clearance bin, you can stretch that amount of money pretty far, depending upon what you're going for. But that also means you have to plan for the larger purchases if they do come up. So it's, again, you've got to balance that stuff. Um, Jonathan Redmond says, I kind of have a collecting budget, but seeing as I only collect 2 lines, I'm very picky as to what I buy, and I tend to have a good amount to roll over. There you go. That's what you have to do, I think, is because there might be some people, depending upon who you are and where you're at with your money and everything. Some folks will be like, I have 50 bucks, I'm gonna spend all 50 and get something I want. Other folks like yourself are like, I'm gonna have it, set it aside, and if something comes up, I can do that. I think that's the smart way to go. Jim Margot says, I have a monthly toy budget, but pre-orders for big ticket items are playing havoc with the plan. Right. Like Action Force is coming, other stuff is coming. And it's one of these things where, again, these releases are happening around this time. Now, we all know that Valaverse was not planning this to happen in the way that it did in terms of timing for Series 1. A lot of factors went into this. So I don't think it was an intentional, December release for that line by any stretch of the imagination, but it's just ending up with what we are getting just by virtue of circumstance, which in turn, for some people, depending upon their position, they may have to rethink certain things. For those that pre-ordered right away, paid the money up front, no problem. But for anyone who ordered from, like, say, a big bad toy store or something like that, where the money didn't get taken out, it's a lot of money to ask to pony up at one time. It's interesting for sure, but it creates kind of a potential quandary, if you will, for sure. Bjorn Jorgensen said, I've got some of my collection on clearance. Name me a few Lego sets. There you go. Absolutely. Johnny Jorgensen says, I did leave a gym stream early the other day to go up to shops and put some layaway on some Jurassic Park World toys on sale. Like, first of all, everyone's got a real life to live. Okay. So I don't expect anyone to feel like they're obligated to stay throughout an entire stream for any reason. You do what you got to do. And putting things on layaway or lay-by, hey, it's a good thing. That means you're not spending things bulk money. You're like, I need to get this, 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 this. You put it up there and you'd be able to pay it off. And that's smart too. I think a lot of folks, there's ways to pay things over time. And I'm not just talking about credit cards. There's, if they offer layaway, or if you're using one of those services that will break up a payment, or rather a larger sum into 4 to 6 interest-free payments, like those are can be good. You just got to make sure you don't stack them too high, or else then you're going to be like, I have to pay all this money. It's an entire thing. Jonathan Redmond also says, bargain prices for action figures, not really a thing over there, though Black Friday deals have been great this year, but for one, supply is not really an issue here either, so it kind of balances out. There you go. Wolfie762 says, I'd like to think of myself as a collector camel. I like that term. Go months without buying stuff, but then drop 400 on some vintage Joes. And last November bought a vinyl Cape Jawa. Cooled off for a while after that. I can imagine those are not cheap, which blows my mind. Like, what makes them so expensive aside from the vinyl always ripping? UTD, I get it. Jordan says, I don't know if it's great or not, but most of my family doesn't really get along with each other, so I don't really have to get many presents beyond my immediate family. It's something that that's a real thing that happens. I am estranged from most of my family, and we don't really exchange gifts remotely at all. And so really it comes down to, like, for Christmas, it's going to come down to, for me, for Sue's. So I'm lucky in that respect, where as far as like actual obligations for gifts are lower. But then there's the trade-off of not really having family to hang out with, because as you all know, my parents are both, gone. And those are the folks that I would buy gifts for and do all that stuff. And then they're not around. And with everything else being an estrangement thing, or just whatever, out of sight, out of mind kind of a thing, we don't really do that. So it helps, but I'm still in a place where I want to make sure I'm doing right by everything. So it's something I was thinking about, and that's why I wanted to do the show. I wanted to let you guys know that if you're thinking about these things, you're not alone. Jeff Cho says, hello, nice to see you, my friend. Joe Becky says, I swear away what I can. I do okay for the family and household, so things like president. Absolutely. Absolutely. Everyone has a different set of priorities. And this is why I'm liking this discussion as much as we can look at everyone's perspectives a little bit differently. And Kieran also, sadly, the toys I want are never reduced in price, so I always have to hunt the eBay sellers for lowest prices. Yes, I get where you're coming from. Wolfie also says so many pre-orders are coming. Should be interesting if they put out another popular season of Mandalorian. Yeah, that's going to be interesting as well. Go to Becky says, wait until I drop the 81 Kraken on my poor wife. Like, whew, that's an responsive toy, sir. That's an responsive and fragile toy. That's it's one that I would love to have. Like, I would love to have the whole line of Clash of the Titans. I had like one or two of the figures when I was a kid. Love the movie. But it's something where, I just never got around to getting them all. Because as a kid and even as an adult, there's this weird thing in the back of my head, because the way retail used to work, you would always have an opportunity to get something. And that's not true, especially with modern toys and specific lines that are kind of hard to come by. Good example being Clash of the Titans. Great example being like the Raiders of the Lost Ark stuff, and certainly aspects of like the Black Star line. There's a ton of toys we could call out that are just not easy to come across, so it doesn't really fit in. But I also collect video games and film. Well, movies go on sale like crazy this time of year. So it's like, well, how it's not what movies am I going to buy? It's like, how many movies am I going to buy? Like, pretty much every paycheck, I buy at least one Blu-ray. That's one of the things that has been a subconscious, unintentional budgeting thing, which adds up. Believe me. I got an import copy of 976 Evil on Blu-ray. It's a really good presentation. It's not region free. I have a region free Blu-ray player, so it's fine. It's the best I could get for the money and this and that and da da da. But that's part of it. So sometimes you're splitting things not just between collecting and your finances and holidays. It's also like each collection has its own little kind of a thing. Hello, Star Fox Rain. Nice to see you. Jacob saw, I hope Jimmy got those pictures. Not only did I get them, I put them in my Google Drive and I sent the link to everybody. Everyone has access to them now, and they look great, by the way. Very good stuff. Jim Largo says, budget tip, bring up religion and politics at Thanksgiving. Get together, then you have less Christmas presents to buy. That's not a bad idea. Not a bad idea. Gojatron says, Shogun Godzilla fought the Kraken on many occasions at my house, and I hope Godzilla won every single time. Otherwise, we might have a problem, Carl. Tongue-tastic voice. Hey, Jim. Hey. TTVs. Good to see you, even here. So, good to see you. Hi. I haven't seen her since Retro, or Japalooza, which is weird. We're like not far from each other at all. But that's the story of my life. I'm right here, and no one ever sees anybody. It's interesting. Bad misspelling, but that's okay. It's typing. It happens. But Jim Margo asks, am I upgrading to 4K? Is it worth the difference? So I will give you a miniature rant about 4K. So 4K is worth it only and only if you are upgrading from 35 millimeter film print sources. Okay. So the reason behind that is that every other format, if you're putting 35 millimeter film onto a digital format, 4K, before 4K, everything was compressed. So you weren't getting the entire picture. You weren't getting the best possible color balance. You weren't getting the best possible picture. You weren't able to preserve nearly as much of the picture as you were, even though there's a lot of great 1080p Blu-rays out there that look amazing. With the right transfer, film is lossless in 4K. So yes, it's worth it for specific films that deserve that kind of treatment. For almost anything else, regular Blu-ray is perfectly fine. So something I don't have on Blu-ray, if it is a film source and the price is right, I will probably get the 4K rather than a regular Blu-ray. For anything else, regular Blu-ray is fine. It's not hurting anything. So, for example, um, I will probably eventually get a 4K of the original Terminator because it's a great film, and I need to research which transfers are the best within 4K. There's a couple different versions of it, and I'll nab it, but I'll also probably keep all my previous versions of it because there are special features that aren't on all of them and all that stuff. Um, I tend to get newer stuff on 4K because the price isn't really any different between the two. If the Blu-ray of something that's new is way cheaper than a 4K, I'll get it. But generally speaking, what I'm looking for with 4K is films and film preservation, essentially. I want to see things as they were intended to be seen. So that's my rant on that stuff. Ian Sweeney says, "Wabi sabi collecting is my outlook. Vintage items I have are often less than mint and or are missing accessories and often in job lots, but they have that X factor. Get a kick of having them. I like that. Wabi sabi, for those that don't know, is I believe, Japanese term meaning imperfect. And it's the idea being that you have something as it is. It tells a story because it's not perfectly new or what have you. And I like that to a certain degree, um, for sure. I like things to be complete. I don't mind if they're a little scuffy and stuff like that. I don't mind that at all. Hello, Gaming Toy Boy. It is good to see you. Seven Wolfie says 4K, not just the resolution, like 500 times more vivid and accurate. Well, that's what I meant when I was talking about the color palette, Wolfie. So maybe I didn't dwell on it as much, but that's certainly a part of it as well. Because you have so many more pixels, the colors can be more varied, things like that. You've got HDR to talk about, things like that. But again, generally speaking, I tend to stick with it for things that are actually old films that will actually benefit from it. Because so many movies out there are only getting 2K transfers, and those are just fine on a 1080 that scale up, and it's whatever. I could have a whole stream about that, and maybe I will. Um, dun, 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 dun. Star Fox says Jacob said he's working on a character sheet for everyone he can think of for the Game Chasers right now, you included. Oh, really? I hope he doesn't exaggerate and butt too much. I appreciate that. Ted Miller brings up a point that Michael French of Retroplasting has brought up before as well. The prequels will never be more than 1080p, and most Avengers more than 2K because that's what they did computer graphics in. Exactly. And a lot of the newer stuff that's coming out, definitely everything's being done in 4K at a certain point, but not everything because budget is a thing. So it's one of those things that over time, different things have different effects attached to them and stuff. So you have to be careful. You need to know what the elements are and so forth. But it is definitely a lot of different things to consider. Yeah, Gaming Toy Boy says I still enjoy all my films on VHS or DVD. Like I will never. There are some things that I'll never be able to get past DVD. There are a lot of things I'll never be able to get past VHS, and that's fine. But for certain films, like First Blood is a good example. Jaws is a good example. Films that like really look good on film, right? Getting them in 4K is a must. I have Transformers the movie in 4K, but I also have it in like 2 different Blu-ray versions and 2 different DVD versions and like 3 or 4 different VHS versions because I just like them. But the 4K was like, all right, this is the last one as far as future releases. Because that's as good as it's ever going to look. It's impossible to make it look better than 4K because there's not enough information contained in the film to make it better. So I'm definitely not poo-pooing on vintage formats. I love them all. If I could, I've said it before, if I could afford it and it was easily done, I'd probably do Laserdisc all the time. Not all the time, but like I would have Laserdiscs in addition to everything else, which maybe it'll eventually happen. I don't know. I really don't know. Rez says, I don't think HDR was that big a difference, so I was able to watch things with it. Exactly. It's one of those things that until you've experienced it, it really does make a difference because that range of color and contrast really goes out there. And Wolfie762 agrees that 4K is not worth it for every film, and some discs are cheap copies of 1080p transfers. Yep. Don't need Tommy Boy 4K, but Batman 89. Exactly. You're making exactly the points that I would make. That's right. Johnny Redmond says HDR is really cool, with so many formats of media only working on some and not all. Really need a universal standard. Absolutely. Absolutely. The standards are very much a mess for sure. Kieran Ball says, I only buy Blu-ray now because they actually restore the old films and TV shows I want to see fault-free. There you go, including Doctor Who in the 70s and stuff like that. And, right, it's not a universal thing. That's why I said certain things, certain formats, certain transfers, I think it's worth it. But there's no blanket, get it in 4K because blah. If this, then 4K is okay. And, Johnny Swordson's saying, like, no 4K TV, so I don't care. Blu-ray's fine for me. Well, I don't have a 4K TV either. Suze does, but we've never hooked it up in here. One, because I don't have the room, and two, we don't need to right now. But all the 4K discs that I'm getting, they come with a regular Blu-ray and possibly also a digital copy. So it's not like I'm missing out on anything. So when the time comes that we are in the bigger place and we, set the 4K TV up, I also have it on 4K. But I'm picky and choosy with that stuff. The same way that I'm picky and choosy with certain modern lines. Like, I'm seeing a lot of like buy two, get one half off, buy two, get one free figures and things like that. And I look at the figures that are on offer, and I either already have them or I'm not interested in them. Because they're not going to put that, figures for that good of a price for the stuff that's kind of trash, or for that's really good. They tend to put out the stuff that's hard to sell. The idea is to entice you to buy things you don't necessarily want. So I think the folks that are completionists for modern lines are getting, not necessarily screwed, but they're the mark for that sort of a thing, if that makes sense. And at the end of the day, you have to be able to pick and choose what it is that means something to you. People who strictly collect vintage, like we've said, are in a different place because people don't tend to have blowout sales for this stuff. If anything, if I were an owner of a toy store that sold vintage stuff, honestly, I might even jack up the prices of toys a little bit around this time of year. Because if a family member is walking into a store to get, say, a Kraken or a Warlock Dragon or something that's really expensive, and they go in knowing it's going to be expensive, you might get an extra $50 out of it. So I don't know. I think everyone has different kind of problems this time of year as it relates to budget and so forth. And even if it's strictly speaking, I usually spend this much a month on whatever, but this month I also have this extra expense. Do you put the brakes on it? Do you try to juggle it? Do you just eat ramen for the month? I don't know. And that's something I think everyone has to kind of come to terms with too, for sure. Ozzy, welcome to the stream, says, hey, as a person who's still upgrading DVDs to Blu-ray, I can't really see myself upgrading to 4K. Well, as I was saying before, if it's something you have on DVD but not Blu-ray, in most cases, upgrading to 4K makes sense because they almost always come with a regular Blu-ray copy in there and a digital copy. So you have multiple ways to access it. And if you get them on sale and the price difference is negligible, in my opinion, it's worth it because you have the opportunity if you eventually go there. But on the same token, I don't think every movie deserves that treatment. Wolfie762 says, big question. When the hell does CBS get off their ass and remaster Deep Space Nine? Next Generation looks amazing. don't know why there are too many CG scenes to rebuild. If fans are doing it, it can be done. Um, I think that it's too many CGI scenes for them to justify the cost of doing it. I agree, the fans are doing the best work, and having seen the documentary and hear them talk about it, um, I think there's a huge following for that show, and I think they'd make their money back. I really do. I really, really do. I agree that it's well past time for them to upgrade that show. It really is. Um, Kieran Ball says, by the time 4K television is cheap enough for me to buy, they'll probably have moved on to 8K. Well, that's starting right now. Like the 8K stuff is the current thing, and 4K is coming down rather significantly for the most part. But um, 8K is not really a thing. It just isn't. Like it's a gimmicky thing, and I think they're going to see the 8K fails, and they're going to stick with 4K for a while because the human eye can only see so much detail. I don't understand why they keep pushing things forward like that. Johnny says, by the time I can afford now virtual CRT 3D 4K glasses. That's fair. Honestly, I would love for them to come up with a flat screen TV that can mimic a CRT light source. Retro gamers will understand why, like light guns and so forth would work again. That's a huge thing. If they do that, that's going to turn retro gaming on its head. I think that would be the coolest thing in the world, but that's R&D that they don't want to spend for a relatively small portion of their market for sure. Starfuck says, I went 4K HDR on everything except my monitor. I take it around with me for my PS5 and Series X because I want a 4K HDR PC monitor. It's super expensive. I get it. I absolutely get it. And it says, but the 1080p 144 hertz is great because I can do 120 frames per second. Right. So at that point, it becomes a question of what's more important: is fluid movement or resolution? And these are all questions one must ask themselves when buying a television. Bjorn Hogan says, "What Star Trek series should I start with?" I gotta be honest. I legitimately feel like you should watch select episodes from the original series first. There's a web-based series called Star Trek Continues, which finishes that story arc and leads into the films. Then you should watch the Star Trek films up through 6, then switch over to Star Trek The Next Generation, watch all of that, and then probably need to watch Deep Space Nine, watch all of that. And if you're still feeling punchy, maybe Voyager and the rest of the films, even though the rest of the films aren't that great. Basically, the TOS, like there's a handful of must-watch episodes. Star Trek Continues is really good, and it does neatly wrap things up into the first film, which I recommend. That's where I would go with it. Jim Margo says, does anyone else consider setting up a separate savings account just for collecting hobby stuff like Grail items? Did that for Man Cave Shelf and remodeling project. I've definitely considered it, and it's something that would help me regiment my spending a lot more. So it's something that I'm looking into. And basically what I've decided is that that's probably what's going to happen with whatever raise I end up getting this year. Taking a portion of that, like 30 to 40, maybe 50% if it's a really big raise, and just putting that into savings for that express purpose and not spending it unless something really big comes along, and still having a, paycheck to paycheck budget for stuff. We'll see though. We'll see. You never know. Never know. Bum bum bum. Put it in the shoebox. There you go. And Carl saying to go chronologically, which I'm pretty much in the same boat, but I don't know that most people who have never really watched Star Trek before, if they would really enjoy the original series all the way through. You should pick and choose your way through it. There's certainly a lot of must-watch episodes in TOS that you should watch. But that's a thing. Ian Sweeney says, off topic, a certain toy store chain here in the UK doesn't appear to hold on to older stock and makes way for new stuff by just dropping prices to let them sell. that just collection indoor Han for £7 was a recent purchase. I'd say that's 100% on topic because it speaks to an approach to collecting that would never interfere with something like a holiday approaching or a unexpected expenses, things like that. So if you're diligent, that can become the best means to collect things. So I think it's absolutely on topic for sure. This is not a 4K versus 8K stream, despite what 20 minutes of this would lead you to believe. But we let things flow. And Kieran Ball says, Bjorn, I think you should start with the original Star Trek TV show and then 2, 3, 4, and 6 movies, and Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever else. I agree, except for I do think the first film, if you watch the updated version, it's worth a watch because it does kind of show some character growth and shows how they came back to everything as well. And I do think that, and if you haven't seen it, if you're a Star Trek fan, look up Star Trek Continues. It's available 100% free on YouTube. It is really, really well done. And it rekindled my love of the original series. Trust me, go check it out. Star Trek Continues. I'm telling you. Definitely something there. Ozzy says, I can only buy Texas Chainsaw Massacre so many times running out of special features. I agree. So I think that I got the first Blu-ray release of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It was one of the first 3 Blu-rays I bought. The first 3 Blu-rays I bought were Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Dawn of the Dead, which was its first Blu-ray release, and the then new Rambo 4. So I got a good deal. And I don't see any reason to get Texas Chainsaw Massacre on 4K unless someone comes along and tells me, like, dude, the transfer's that much better than the Blu-ray. The Blu-ray was amazing. So I don't see a need for it myself to go any further than that. So you're going for after that collector grade stuff, like the semi truck boxes. I don't mess with that crap. I really don't. But I get where you're coming from for sure. But everyone has their priorities. Nothing wrong with it. If you can, when you get to the Star Trek motion picture, watch the director's edition. Exactly. So set up a quote. Yeah, exactly. So it's. I agree 100% that because it solves so many of the problems that the original film had, bumps up the effects in a good way for the parts of the film that needed it, and doesn't screw with what did make the film pretty good. I agree that the first season of Next Generation is pretty meh, but it's good for character building. Once you've seen TNG all the way through, pretty much you can start like midway through season 2 and be fine. Like, I love the Nagilam episode, which is like the second or third episode, I think, in series 2. It's my favorite episode, or one of my favorite episodes. But, as a body of work, once you're familiar enough with seasons 1 and 2, like, what happened, it's pretty much season 3 to the end for me every time. I just don't mess with it unless I'm in a really big, like, if I finish all those seasons and I want more Next Generation, then I'll go back and watch them and go, ugh, that's a bad idea. Move on to something else. Keith Knight says, recently watched 11 episodes. Star Trek Continues. There you go. Yeah, it's amazing. For once we agree on something. It's really good stuff. Okay, so you say that Texas Chainsaw is not meant to be watched in 4K. I strongly disagree for the simple fact that film, which I believe this was shot on 35 millimeter, might have been 16. If it was 16 millimeter, I agree. But if it was 35 millimeter, that's the only way to watch it unless you're actually watching a 35 millimeter print, because the way that film transfers work. Hard disagree otherwise. If it's 16, then yeah, you're right. Blu-ray's fine. You're absolutely right there. The motion picture would be your favorite Trek film, Rez. I'm not going to say anything else. Well, yeah, it's meant to be gritty. You're right. It is meant to be seen as gritty, but you get all the grit and all the hair and all the dirt uncompressed without pixelization and bullshit that's not meant to be in the film in a good 4K transfer. 4K does not mean we've polished all the edges and we've made the film look like something it's not supposed to be. It means you get to see all the grain and the dirt and the grime and the crap. That's what it should be. That's how the transfers are supposed to work. Doesn't always work out that way, but that's what's supposed to happen. I'm going to get off my soapbox. That's literally not what that means. I mean, I understand where you're coming from, but you have to look at how it works. You have to look at how it works. Because 4K is, because everything, including Blu-ray, is compressing the picture somewhat on a 35 millimeter print. You see what I'm saying? On 4K, it's the one format where they don't have to make any compromises in the print transfer. They can just put it in there, scan it, and do nothing else to it, and you're getting a direct representation of what the film looks like. But that's for 35 millimeter. I seem to remember that Texas Chainsaw was shot on 16 millimeter. If so, Blu-ray's fine. You don't need anything else. Anything else is just BS. So, bum 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 bum. So, the third thing in here that we were going to talk about is wallet pain, because as it relates to the holidays, and your budget and things like that. There are a lot of things that come hard and come fast in the toy world. In different times of the year. Video games, it happens every single September. It feels like, where there's a bunch of anticipated things coming out at the same time, and it's like you have to decide what to spend your money on. And with modern gaming, that's not nearly as big a problem as it is with modern toys or newer lines and things like that, because you're kind of stuck with whatever happens. And how many of you have pre-ordered something from something like a big bad toy store or a GameStop or Amazon, whatever the case is, and you've budgeted for them to take out the money at the estimated release date, and they push the release up by a couple weeks, a month, or a few months? I'll give you an example. The Marvel Legends Fantastic Four figures. When I pre-ordered them, they were expected to arrive in like February, March of next year. I have three out of the four core figures from that line, and one of the two Hasbro Pulse exclusive figures that have come out. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, I'm budgeting in a certain way for a specific reason. Do you ever see pre-orders get screwed up like that? Because that can screw up your budget. It can screw up your plans. Like if you were saying, okay, I've got this 150 set aside to get a, freaking slightly more expensive piece. And then something comes along that was up for pre-order, but comes out sooner, and it screws everything up. Has that happened to anybody? And if it does, how do you feel about it? Are you happy to get the stuff sooner? Or are you pissed that your plans got screwed up, or somewhere in between? Because it can get really sticky depending on how tight your budget is. Right. And you saw the you saw those in person at a store. But the way that a lot of the pre-orders work, it's like this figure, and this figure, and this figure, and like, I get it. Jim Margo says, I'm finding that my toy collecting budget is now expanding to include dioramas, props, accessories, and figure stands for displays and toy photography. Definitely a wallet killer, for sure. Absolutely. That's a whole other part of collecting. And it's something that I'm not focused on for right now. One, because of space. I have nowhere I'm going to put those displays at this time, and the prices kind of stay the same, so I don't really have to worry about it. But also, I don't know exactly how I want to display them yet. So I view that for me as a kind of advantage. And plus, the idea being that as the collection grows and I start to see, okay, what's getting bigger, what's staying the same, da, 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 da. What are my needs in that space? And at once I am like, okay, here's where I've got, here's how I plan to display it. Then I can build the ideas for display around that as opposed to what I think is going to happen. And I don't want to buy based on that. Granted, you have a dedicated space for the stuff. It's something that you're really hyper focused on because you have the large collection already. Like, I totally get that. I'm not poo pooing that. I'm just simply saying that for me, it's a different perspective because I mean, frick, my He-Man and Skeletor are just standing on a PC speaker looking at me like, what are you doing? I haven't eaten for 3 days. Ozzy says, I've never had a pre-order screw up, but I always pay up for pre-orders too. Fair enough. And I think it depends upon if you're doing it in person, that's different. A lot of online retailers, they just won't take the money out until it ships. Amazon does that, like, for example, with movies because the price might go down, which is fine, but it does happen. Bjorn Dorgan says, I mix a mix of the two, although sometimes I'm more happy than mad. Depends upon what's arriving, right? Jonathan says, my local supplier is rock solid for getting everything apart from Amazon exclusive. So when I pre-order with them, I always pay in advance, save so much hassle in the long run. I agree with that, but there are certainly things that will get announced that I want to pre-order that I can't afford in the moment because it's this weird shell game that you play with your money sometimes, I find. And that's part of why having a dedicated little account that just has like a kitty, if you will, of funds would make more sense. And I think what's going to end up happening for me is that I need to find a local toy store that I trust to do pre-orders through instead. So I can pay them up front and then they're, hey, your thing's here. And I can just go do that. That would make my life a lot easier. Because I used to do that with comic books. I used to do it with movies, even back in the day, albums, all that stuff. And I think I need to find more in-person solutions for things when a pre-order is involved. Because I think that would take a lot of the sting out of it. Because you don't, there are times when I get close to a paycheck where I'm really stretched thin or frankly broke. And, or I'm close to being broke, and then something comes out that I wasn't expecting to come out, like a pre-order or some trash like that. And then it's like, well, there goes my coffee creamer budget or whatever. It's kind of nuts. Johnny Sorensen says, 1,000,001 pre-order screw-ups, no matter where I order, I just buy something else. Yeah, that's fair enough. Bump, 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 bump. Free out, friends, Jim, or I'll get you. So, free out, friends, Jim, or I'll get you. I'm not sure what you're saying. Oh, free our friends. Free our friends, Jim, or I'll get you. Okay, I got it. That's funny. No, they'll be freed when I'm free. I'm free of this small space prison. Jonathan says, "Oh, for sure, but it's only must-have figures I bother pre-order. 95% of my pickups I just order from them when they get it in stock, and I'll have it the next day." Yeah, fair enough. Sure. And I think that speaks to the differences between different areas. Like, there are some folks that are in like rural places that they don't have local options that they can even make that choice. There are certainly some areas of the U.S. and I'm sure there are areas of like the UK and other countries as well where they have no choice but to do something online, and they really have to get careful. So another thing that I have the option to do, that after Christmas I will probably do. I have a card attached to my account that is a revolving prepaid credit card. Is what it boils down to, and I can transfer funds in and out of there as often as I want. Doesn't cost me anything, no penalties or anything. So what I need to do is start saying, okay, here's all of my recurring costs that are consistent, like your streaming services and certain utilities and things like that. But I also think that with pre-orders, I should start doing it there too. So you put it on that card, you put the money into that account, and just leave it be. And then whenever it comes out, it just goes, and it doesn't hurt anything at that point. I think that's probably the best option. And because I'd be, off-putting things and trying to fill different financial holes and stuff, I think it would help the reality of certain pre-orders, like deciding, okay, well, at some point between now and the end of the month, I got to find, $100 to put in there so that whenever it comes out, it's just gone. And I really think that using Action Force as an example, had I been doing that as a practice and had I been able to follow through on it, the idea of going, well, you're gonna have to take $350 and it's gonna have to find its way into that account so that when they arrive, they're ready to go. And it's you know, when you think about ordering things in bulk, it can be a really big problem. So you have to be careful. Kieran says the only collectible I pre-order are Doctor Who Blu-ray steelbooks because they always sell it fast. Prefer to buy toys on hand. Absolutely. Right, Ozzy, because a lot of times those are okay, but with movies, it depends upon what it is. I know that you do a lot of horror stuff, and for lack of a better term, more obscure stuff. Certainly with music, with our taste and everything, it's easier to do. But it's something where I'll give you an example with Transformers the movie, 4K Blu-ray that came out. It was supposed to come with a poster. That poster sold out in less than 24 hours. And then you can only get the Blu-ray, which is fine. Like, it's not the end of the world, but that's something that should have been a really wide release. And nope, you got to be careful about that stuff. Oh, no worries, Brendan, mate. We will certainly look forward to you chiming in, sir. We're jumping around on different things, so you should be okay. And Bjorn says I have to go 30 to 45 minutes away to pre-order stuff in person. Yeah, I can see how that's a problem too. Ian Sweeney says, "While back, I got a Star Wars playset, and it helps when choosing what figures to buy. What would look good in the part of the playset that helps with wallet pain. That's why I'm doing the Bespin thing, right? Because I don't want to have all the Star Wars figures. I just need all the figures relevant to Bespin and the scenes surrounding that area. I'm in the same exact boat where you try to laser focus your stuff. I agree 100%. I agree 100%. Jonathan says Ireland and the UK have it pretty good for figure collecting because we get all the exclusives without most of the hassle, except Amazon because screw them because via stock control. I agree. I agree. Yeah, see, Ozzy, I guarantee 95% of chat won't even know what those movies are. Just as an example, the demand is not as high, therefore they're not selling out within mere seconds, which does happen in a lot of the collector circles for other stuff. So you are lucky in that respect. This is an excellent point, and I'm glad that you brought this up, Newcastle. They say I don't plan on buying vintage stuff on eBay in December because shipping is going to suck next month. It's as slow as it is. Plus, it's going to be more expensive, right? There's going to be certain things that just kind of go, ugh. And I agree with that 100%. That's a really, really good point, and thank you for making that point as well. Brendan also says, I question Big Bad Toy Store as to whether they are shipping to Australia yet, and they advise they have been able to for a week or so. Now wait for pre-orders to arrive. Oh. So Australia is opening up. Is that true? Because something arrived for you last week. I'm not sure what's wrong with my neck, but something arrived for you last week. Yeah, Shaw factors every hit or miss with the extras for sure. Gaming Toy Boy saying something others have said in a slightly different way. Being 95% vintage collectors, I don't have these problems. No, I disagree. You may not have the same pre-order problems, but in terms of budgeting and opportunity and timing, things like that. Those can all happen to you. But you're right. There's nothing to pre-order unless you're collecting, say, custom figures that are on pre-order. That's a whole other subject. But I'm trying to snake my way in here. But certainly, there's a lot of different options here. So we're at an hour, and I certainly want to continue the conversation. Up to that 90-minute mark. I definitely want to encourage everyone to this is more or less the Q&A portion of things. So I've kind of set the stage of all the things that we were talking about. So I encourage everyone to spit out some questions and talk amongst yourselves, and we'll try to continue the conversation in that way for sure. But I am planning to get out of here at half past the hour. So just to let you know. And Brendan says, "Yay, present! Keith and I check times." I gotcha. Yeah, absolutely. Certainly something that I'm not going to say anything. Screw it. I got stuff I got to send to Tony as well. And what I need to figure out is if it's cheaper to send it all to one person and have the other person send it within the country or not. I don't know how that works. Someone will have to tell me. But either way, I got stuff for both of you. Some of the stuff for Tony's been sitting here forever. I got to get that out of there. I got so much crap to send to so many different freaking places. I love it. Try to reorganize everything. It's good times. It's a good problem to have, though. I like the idea of having all this stuff like for people to have. I enjoy that very much. I'm looking forward to it for sure. And 'tis the season, I suppose. But Joe Becky bringing up something that I already knew, but it's good FYI. Blade Runner, Alien, and 2001 on 4K are all amazing. Order 42, Rob, that was here on the show last week, I want to say. They all run together anymore in terms of like which week who did what. He is a big proponent for 4K, and he's very good at looking up scans and stuff like that. And Billy is good for that too. So we all kind of commiserate and figure out what's worth it and what isn't. And he has all those on 4K. It's like, dude, like he's very much like, so like when he makes that noise, I'm like, I know what's going on. I know where it's going. So your microphone has somehow made it to another state, but should be here in a week. Ugh, awful. Sorry to hear that. Bum, 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 bum. You have a parcel notice from Australia Post. Yes. Yes. Newcastle says Bobby Valla had to send a package to Tony in Australia, shipped to UK from the Tony because of shipping. Well, part of it was also that they weren't allowing us to ship there. That's the thing. Even stuff within the US, like I shipped a box about this big, and a box about this big, and it costs over $120 to go 2 states, 3 states away. Stupid. It costs way too much to ship. Way too much shipping is such a racket, especially considering how horribly things get treated sometimes. Let me see if I can reach these real quick. I want to show you guys something. I can't show you the box. I want to show you something that I have and then tell you something. So, one moment. So, this here is my Savage World Freddy Krueger. Now, I already have the Pinhead. I have the Jason. I have the Leatherface. Him and Jason came in the same box. And they were mailed overseas because that was the best deal I could get. Happens a lot, apparently. And they were in a box together. They were surrounded by paddocks. They were in these bags that it's pretty pretty solid bag. And it, they also had padding around them, but the box, when it arrived, was dented really, really badly. And I was like, shit. I thought for sure these would be destroyed, but as you can see, it's pretty damn good shape, all things considered. But yeah, now I have all 5 of these guys. My Pinhead is still in storage, but he's also still in the package in storage. So I considered getting another one, just so I had the whole set in one place, but that's a waste of money, frankly. But it was like the amount of damage to that box was just, I couldn't believe how much damage was done to it. I was, my heart sank. So I'm like, motherfucker, can't believe this. And then you open it up and they're fine. So, Algie says, I was going to watch Blade Runner last night, but I watched Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. I don't know how from Blade Runner to Bill and Ted, but it happened to me all the time. That kind of a thing is weird. Where you go over thinking you're going to watch a certain kind of movie, you pick something else up off the shelf. Good night, Ian Sweeney. You stay safe as well. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you. Hello, Tim Hayes. Nice to see you. Did Ace Ventura deliver the box? I don't know. Could be, but I wasn't there because I went to the box. So I don't know. But this is also the same place that something will get delivered on a Thursday. Suze will go to the mailbox Friday and Saturday, maybe even Sunday, and they say they're not there. And then she'll go in on Tuesday, and suddenly they've arrived. And it's like, I don't know what's going on over there. I really don't. Whoops. Freddy Haley says, I have had Reclaimer toys storing a few pieces for me during the shipping event, including a mask rhino. Dread how large the box will be in shipping. Fair. But it'll be good. Tag. Good to see you, Nerd Rage. Always good to see you. Thank you again for the kind gifts in the boxes. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. What do I think about the Blade Runner Black Lotus? I haven't watched it. It took me like 3 years just to watch the Blade Runner sequel, which I loved. But I tend not to mess around with animation based on like stuff like that. It took me several years to get into the Clone Wars, and even then, it was hard to get into it because the animation style really was, like you say, it's off-putting. So it's something that, with the Blade Runner Black Lotus, I did not even know it was a thing, and I don't care. We'll see. Because new series, I tend to get really cagey about it because if I like it and they don't finish it, I get mad. I got mad about the Netflix Marvel series because of that. Friends of mine got screwed over on like Firefly back in the day. I've only watched 2 episodes of Firefly, and I don't give a crap. I don't care. I see why it was cool in the day. Now it doesn't matter, personally. But I'm really paranoid about series not getting finished, so I tend not to latch on to things when they're new too often. If they get completed and they're well rated, then I'll go back and watch them and stuff like that. But on the other hand, you got like the Godzilla anime stuff on Netflix. It was horrible. It's awful. Absolutely awful. You need to watch the new Creepshow series. We started it in October. We watched like, I don't know. We got through the first season, started the second season, and it's good. It's really good. It kind of toes that line between the Tales from the Crypt vibe and the Creepshow film vibe. So it's right where it needs to be. It's very good. I actually really enjoy it. Con Man, you say? With Alan Tudyk. I like all the actors in Firefly, but I like Alan Tudyk. No hostiles. One hostile. I like that guy. It's good. He's funny. He's good. Steve the Pirate R, like he's good for sure. But Kieran Ball says, I can never understand sellers who fail to pack their items properly. Pardon me. Always take the utmost care when sending items through the post. Use acid-free bags, bubble wrap, and plastic tubs. You bet. You bet. I'll never understand that either. Especially when, like in an Amazon situation, where they can certainly afford the packing material, and in many cases they way overpack things that don't need it, and stuff like action figures that do need it, they don't pack it at all. And I'm like, what are you doing? I don't understand. Like getting card backs completely bent backwards just to fit it into a smaller box. I'm like, you mother, you know. And FedEx is just. Oof. When I was doing custom game cases, the only way to get the cases that I need, the blanks, was from FedEx. So they take this crate, which is already in a flimsy box, put it in an outer box, and ship it to you. The first time I got them, all of the cases on the outer layer were damaged beyond the state of being able to sell them or even use them. So it kind of killed my business cost quite a bit, and kind of gave me a on the whole thing. And you couldn't get it shipped any other way than FedEx because they refused. They just flat out refused to ship this stuff. It's horrible. Always try to pack things as best you can, regardless of whether they care about the box or the card. Well, I can certainly attest to that, and you do a good job of shipping. Everything I've gotten from you has been very good. Anyone that shipped me anything, for the most part, it's been fine. The last package that Nerd Rage sent, I think, just got manhandled unfairly during the post. That's the only explanation for the condition of one particular item that arrived. I can't say it out loud because of the nature of what it's for. But that's a whole thing. It was very disappointing when it happened. People says, do y'all prefer holiday gifts to follow a theme or random stuff? I don't know. It's been so long since I've had holiday gifts plural, from one person, or like people conspiring and stuff like that. I haven't had that. When I was a kid, I liked a little bit of variety. So if we're thinking of toys, like I liked getting a bunch of Star Wars figures, but also getting stuff for other lines, and getting like nice pajamas. Like I like variety a lot when it comes to gifts. On the other hand, if you're going to get me a complete set of something, I'm not going to complain about that either. You know what I mean? So I think it varies depending upon the year and what's happening and everything else. That's for me. I can't speak for anybody else. Everybody says flat out, or worse of the sellers who flat out lie about the item. I just received a Steve Scout from Soft Goods Figure. The arm was broken. The seller did not mention it, but had put some kind of putty on the arm. That is the worst. Absolutely. Tim Hayes asks how my physical media collecting has been going. The same as always, because I never stop. Never, ever stop. Like I was saying, like every paycheck I get at least one film on media. Every single paycheck, I get at least one, depending upon the deals that are out there. It dawned on me before the stream. I'm like, yeah, I'm buying a lot of Blu-rays. So, and it's something that I don't see any reason to stop. The question just kind of becomes, what's available, what's on my mind. I don't really have a plan. I have a running wish list of those things, and sometimes it'll just be I'm watching a movie and I'm like, oh, I don't have this movie. Let me look it up. And if I see it and it needs, I have to wait till the price comes down. I wait. If it's a good price, I just pull the trigger. That's pretty much how it goes. And sometimes I'll be ordering something small, and I'll say like, well, I need to pump up this order a little bit. So I'll go to like the Blu-ray wish list and just put a Blu-ray in there. Or if something's like, if I had budgeted $30 or something, ends up being $25, I'm like, ooh, let me find a $5 Blu-ray in my list. Happens all the time. Any particular collecting focus for 2021? 2022. Okay. Um, yeah, yes and no. In as much as because everything in my collection more or less is still building on some level, I wouldn't say that I'm super hyper focused on anything, but I'll tell you where my head is at. Being that my Motu Origins is all but caught up, it's going to be just continue to keep things on pre-order, um, continue to cherry pick the Marvel Legends pre-orders, and which basically leaves anything else that I have. Um, I've been lucky enough and blessed enough to acquire some GI Joe classified stuff. I'm not hyper focused on that line, but I like what I like. So it's something where between that and the Action Force stuff, I'm going to keep my eyes on that kind of a thing. But because of the fact that there's only so much available in those lines, it's not like I'm going to be going after it all the time. With Superpowers Collection, I've got my Series 1, got my Series 2, and I'm picking up a few little tiny pieces here and there just because it's something to do. Um, and yes, I have started looking at Series 3. I'm thinking about it. And Godytron's over here saying, 2022, Year of the Justice Jogger. Someone came across one for me over the weekend, and the price wasn't bad at all. Wasn't bad at all things considered. Um, but I can't justify spending the amount of money that was going to be. And it was a sealed in box Justice Jogger in a pretty good box for $200. Good price. It's a pretty good price. But I'm looking. I have not pre-ordered Stridor for Motu Origins. I didn't even know it was up for pre-order yet. It's not. I don't think it is on BBTS. Is it? If it is, I'll have to grab it. Ooh, that fire is on a burn pile. Oops. Oh wow, you got a Marvel Select Colossus and the figure arrived with their feet super glued into a standing pose. Ouch. Ouch. That's ugh. Now, granted, if it's inside of a box, I can see where the seller might not know, but I have a feeling that wasn't the case at all. And either way, you should know the condition of what you're selling, or rankly. Okay, you pre-order from a small Australian site. Well, let me take a look. Let me take a look. I don't think it's up yet, but we'll see. Because I follow a couple Twitter accounts and I have them on notifications. I tend to know when things go live most of the time, but we'll take a look and see what's there. And I see Carl saying he hasn't seen it for pre-order yet either, which would make sense to me as well. But let's take a look. Let's have a look. Hide in stock. Only show pre-order. Okay. So currently for pre-order on BBTS is everything I already have on pre-order. So we're looking at. Let me show you. Bum, 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 bum. So we've got Wave 7, the individual figures from Wave 7, the Palace Guard. Stinkor is still sitting there as a pre-order because they're getting more stock of him. Then you have the Flying Fist He-Man and Terror Claw Skeletor up for pre-order. That's all they have right now. All they got. So I don't think we're missing anything just yet, which is fine. But I am glad not to have missed it. Reyes is still awaiting the arrival of the Eternian Guard. Yeah, Jitsu is still a pre-order here in the States, so it's going to be a minute. Because I ordered pre-ordered Wave 7, it hasn't arrived yet. Wave 6, I just got Wave 6 like 2 weeks ago, and it should be arriving tomorrow in the post. I waited because pile of loot. My next pile of loot is it's a lot because a lot of stuff stacked up at one time. And luckily, shipping like they were everything was already paid for. You guys want to know what I got? I'll just read it. I'm not going to show you anything because I have nothing to show yet. And I don't plan on doing a video for these because it would very much be a look at my stuff video. Ugh, gross. But if you want to know what I'm getting, I will happily tell you. Forbidden Planet UKS drive order for pre-order. Very, very nice. Very nice. Very nice. Not a bad thing. Not a bad thing at all. Well, of course. Yes! We want to know. Okay. So Carl had sent me a couple of those. tell me now, damn it. All right. So Carl had sent me graciously as a gift the Transformers War for Cybertron Kingdom Core, Optimus Prime and Megatron. They're like little guys, but they transform and they're great. So I got the Soundwave and Starscream from that line. My Wave 6 Motu, so that's Stinkor, Lords of Power, Beastman, Webstore, and the Green Eternian Goddess. My Master of the Universe Origin Mosquitor is coming. I got a Marvel Legends Retro Collection Sandman, and I got a Fantastic Four Marvel Legends The Invisible Woman is coming. I also got Spider-Man Marvel Legends Wave 13. I got the whole wave because the amount of money I was saving relative to other stuff, it just made sense. So that has 2 different costume versions for Spider-Man for No Way Home. It has a Miles Morales. It's got a J.K. Simmons, Jonah Jameson, which is like, oh, gotta have that. It's got Doctor Strange. It's got Morlus and Shriek. They have an Armadillo Build-A-Figure. So, pretty good stuff. Dedicated ACC, totally considered. Almost impossible to execute for you. Dedicated ACC? What I miss? ACC, what is that? What is it? I don't understand. Am dumb. But yeah, that's what's coming. So we got the 2 Transformers, and we got freaking 5 Motu Origins figures, and 8 Marvel Legends figures. So it's gonna be a lot in that damn box, that's for sure. Yeah, dude, don't remind me about that. I am legitimately considering canceling a big portion of my pre-order for Action Force, not because of any other reason than finances. That's a lot of money, man. So I'm on the fence right now, and I'm thinking about it. I got to look at them and decide what is definitely not necessary right now, especially when one considers that he's considering reissuing some figures later. So there's some stuff that I probably need to say no on at this point, which sucks, but that's the reality of it, it's a big ask, and it's not Bobby's fault. It's not Big Bad Toy Store's fault. It's my fault for overreaching, and I should have been more responsible with stuff leading up to it. It is what it is. It's fine. Joe DeBecky says, I've been watching quite a bit of standard def DVDs lately. I'm surprised how some discs hold up far better than others in terms of quality mastering. I think it's true of Blu-ray too. There's some transfers that just suck, for sure. And it's something where I agree. A lot of DVDs look pretty darn good on the right TV that can upscale and stuff like that. Some are just bleh, because the transfer was bad to begin with. Yes, Kieran, they are releasing a Spider-Man Black costume figure, and I believe I have that on pre-order already because I'm an idiot. Goji Charles, I have 9 things in my pile of loot waiting for a couple weeks to see what else rolls in before I ship it. That was kind of the play with this stuff here, because I had like the FF stuff was sitting in there, and I want to say that I was waiting for the Sandman to show up, and I was waiting for the Wave 13 set to show up. And so when everything came within like 10 days of each other, I'm like, all right. And then I just saw how big it was. I was like, okay, I got to ship this stuff for sure. Brother Haley says, I'm trying to catch up on some older Origins figures. Oh, Web Store just came out in the States, like within a couple weeks. So that'll be easy. Manny faces, going to be hard to get. Going to be kind of hard to get. You don't want the Lord of Power Merman and Beastman, but you want Stinkor, so I don't order the whole wave. I get where you're coming from. The Beastman thing, for me, came down to a couple things. I already had all the other Lord of Power reissues up to this point. So it's like, well, I'm already in on that. Plus, because in my head, I really want to be retail complete, and getting the wave was the easiest way to get the other 3 figures I did want. And one of those was already an alternate version, a Lords of Power version, so to speak. I'm like, screw it, I'm getting this guy. It's a thing. And for sure, CBS did a shit-tastic job on the MacGyver box set. Eyes are bleeding. I heard about that. Daniel Carhoon, and welcome to the stream. I am doing well, my friend. Good to see you as always. Thank you very much. Whoop. Wrong place. Okay. Joe DeBacon says, a big proponent of Star Trek Next Generation Season 1, closest to whatever be considered the source in your humble opinion. I wouldn't disagree with that statement, but I would also add the addendum for better or for worse. So depending upon what you're wanting to get out of a Star Trek series, could be different. So I think they're all valid. I just think that it depends upon what you want most out of Star Trek. This is me. Well, Metacardboard, welcome. Says, I just bought just a few items this year for Christmas. Change at my workplace's health plan means I have to have an $8,000 pay cut. Whoo! That's not fun. Sorry to hear that. But it's good to know that you were still able to have a Christmas, because it's not about how many gifts you get or give. It's that you give, in my opinion. I'm not going to buy oodles and oodles of things when it comes to Christmas gifts. I'll buy a couple things and keep it simple, for sure. Dean, hello, Dean. Everyone say hello to Dean. Hi, Dean. Because even if you don't want the Lords of Power figures, just order the cases, sell the ones you don't want. I agree with that. I agree with that 100%. Which was, me being on the fence kind of a thing. Where it's like, well, it's just easier to get the case because then you don't have to worry about different arrival times and all this trash. So for me, it made more sense to just buy the whole wave for the relative cost differential. Because for 3 figures, you're spending $60 at Big Bad Toy Store anyway. You order the whole wave at $69. You see what I'm saying? So it saves money in a sense. And if you sell one figure for $20, which is not a horrible markup by any stretch, you've made back your taxes and shipping costs on the whole thing, and you're up on the deal. So that's my thought process, anyhow. And I was going to say that I know several Motu collectors in Australia can help move anything you don't want, Brendan. There you go. There you go. There you go. Brendan says, in the future, I think I'll do that. It'll be cheaper in the end, and I've never sold it on eBay. Might change my collector model. There you go. These are things that you kind of have to think about. It's not just getting the things you want; it's getting them in a smart way. So initially, I ordered the wave with this. I was like, well, if I really don't like the Lords of Power Beastman, I'll sell them off. That was the exact thought process in my head. And I thought, no, I've been saying retail complete till I'm blue in the face, and I really mean it. I would like to have that. And he's a retail figure, so screw it. For me, it's just a screw it moment. And that's all there is to it. So, Old Medic Powerboard says, I think you will like what I bought. 2 classic Godzilla movies on DVD and a Star Trek Punch-Out book. That's pretty cool. I do like that, for sure. Absolutely. Daniel says, I'm not planning to buy anything special for Christmas. Fair enough. Yeah, I'm not getting myself anything special. Because the way I look at it, my toy collecting this year has been just a big Christmas present. And then, those are like the stocking stuffers, and the big Christmas present has been you guys, honestly. So I'm happy, but when I'm saying buying gifts, I'm talking about buying for Suze. because there's some things that I want to get her, and I've got a longer list. And I haven't decided what I'm going to get, and make sure that it arrives on time because time is running out. So that's a whole thing as well. So if you have a buddy you just give the extra stuff to when you get a wave, that's fair. And Gojatron, not wrong. Godzilla is always a good decision, and I too am curious which films that they got. So it's it's an interesting time of year for certain. I think that there's ways to mitigate any potential holiday costs. Even if you don't celebrate, there are decisions that have to be made with regard to sales, and just the timing of release of certain things can screw up what you would normally have as a month to month month to month budget as things go through. So I I think that no matter what you collect, no matter what your budgeting process is, this is a time of year when you have to keep your eyes open and keep things um, under control, so to speak. Absolutely. So, uh, Gaming Toy Boy says exactly how he put his vintage Action Man collection together: buy in bulk with job lots, take what you want, sell the rest, maybe even make a profit. There you go. There you go. And destroy all monsters. The Kaiju Avengers. Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, Jim Largo says, hoping for a Valverse Christmas. No idea when Big Bad Toys took the shipments. Yeah, I'd have to say that based upon Bobby's estimate of the worst case scenario for just people like direct pre-orders, I would expect the Big Bad probably won't get anything until mid-December, and they might just say we're holding off on shipping anything until after Christmas. That might be a whole thing. So I think it's going to widely depend. For your pre-order, you bought a prepaid card, some money is there, and I don't think about it. Yeah, I think that's that's probably one of the best practices that one can do. Something where the money is just out of sight, out of mind, and it's just done. I think it's a really smart move. Um, absolutely. It's not something that I wasn't thinking it through when I did it. I had been thinking for months that I was off the train, and I happened to see they were up, and I went do 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 do. But I don't need all of it. I really don't. Much as I would love to think that I do, I really don't. So I have to kind of decide what I actually want. Um, and the first thing to go will probably be a lot of the alternate weapon packs, a lot of the alternate accessories, and a lot of the troop builders. Because I don't really feel like I want the troop builders as much as I thought I did. I don't think I do. Um, because I like the characters of the story. So I'm going to lean into the characters more than the troop builders because the troop builders are probably always going to be around in some form. That's my philosophy on it, anyway. We'll see. We'll see what happens because I'm going to take a hard look at it here this week or next and figure out what I really need to do. Yeah, see, I pre-ordered everything. I went do 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 do. I didn't because I didn't. I was like, I don't everything. Put it all in the cart. Go, give it to me. And I don't think it's a smart move on my part. Even if the money were just sitting there, I could do it. I still don't think it's a smart idea. So, it's just one of those whole entire things. So, in summation, I think that this was a very interesting conversation. I had a absolute ton of fun, and I thank everyone for coming out here. Um, if we didn't get to your question, or you have something that you think of after the fact, please put a comment in here. I would love to talk about this further. We can always do a follow up, maybe after the holidays, like how's your wallet feeling, kind of thing. We could do that, absolutely. And then next week we have another show coming up. It'll be another solo show, but I think you guys will be really interested in it for sure. And I hope that you enjoy it. I hope that all the days, are well for you, and that you're happy, and that your card backs are straight, and that your grinds are merry, and everything in between. I've enjoyed my time with you tonight, but time is up. And I will be seeing you folks as soon as possible. I also want to say I am not going to be releasing a pre recorded video this week, partially because of the holiday, and also because I may end up streaming somewhere around the Thanksgiving holiday here in America. It's a tradition for me to stream on the holidays for folks that maybe either don't celebrate or are otherwise not celebrating, like they're not in America or they don't have anyone around the holidays. So that's something that I tend to do. I haven't finalized any plans for that at this point, but know that if I do anything, it'll be a stream. Otherwise, look forward to seeing us on stream next Monday at the same bat time and channel. Na 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 na. And I have absolutely exhausted all of the padding that I can do. To answer Rez's question, it will definitely be here on YouTube. It may also be on Twitch. I have not made that decision either, but I will let you know for sure. In any case, love you guys. I'm out of here. Bye.